So, in the previous session, we stopped with indicator species. We have seen the examples of indicator species, okay, lichens and otters. Now, we'll start with a very simple concept, that is the trophic level or trophic organization. So this is just a word, okay. Once we describe this particular term, then we'll move on, okay. We'll look into stratification in the communities. So, sorry. All right. So trophic levels. Okay, so trophic level or trophic organization in the community, right? So trophic levels are different steps or rank in the food chain. So where does that particular organism fit in the food chain? Okay, so how it is obtaining the nutrients or how it is obtaining the food. All right, so what is the position of the organism in the food chain? Okay, in the energy flow. So energy flows through food chain. So what is the position of that particular organism? That is the trophic level, where it fits, whether it is a herbivore, whether it is a primary carnivore, whether it is a secondary carnivore, where does it fit in the food chain? That is the trophic level. Okay, so we have first trophic level. At the base of the pyramid, we have producers, that are plants, algae, all right, some bacteria. Then we have primary consumers, that are herbivores, insects, rodents. Okay, so these are your primary consumers. Then we have secondary consumers, these are the carnivores. Okay, then we have tertiary consumer, and above that we have quaternary or your apex predators. So all of these organisms at different trophic level, when they die, they are decomposed. Their body or the organic matter will be decomposed by a specific group of organisms that are called as decomposers, detrivores and decomposers. All right, so that was trophic level. Just I wanted to introduce the term. Now let us look into stratification in the community. Okay, so ecological communities, so we have different types of communities, minor and major communities, right? So minor communities, they cannot exist on their own. Major community is like pond, in a pond ecosystem, right? A forest where there are different communities interacting with each other. So when I say minor community, so let us say plant community. Plant communities cannot exist independently on their own, because again, plants require nutrients, right? For these nutrients to enter into the soil, organic matter has to be decomposed, it has to be mineralized, then inorganic nutrients will enter into the soil. Those nutrients are taken up by the plants. So without micro organisms, without the microbial community, plant communities cannot survive on their own, right? So there is animal community. Within that we have herbivores, right, carnivores. So animal communities cannot survive on their own, they require plants directly or indirectly. Herbivores directly, they eat on the plants. Carnivores, they eat on the herbivores. So without plants, animals cannot survive. So a major community is self-sustaining, whereas a minor community cannot sustain on its own. Okay, so ecological communities are arranged in different layers or strata or zones, you can say. So these stratification can be vertical and horizontal. So you can see both type of stratification. So horizontal stratification is also called as zones. So they are arranged in the form of different layers. For example, stratification that you see in the tropical forest. So you can see here, we have an example of tropical forest where you have vertical stratification. So you have different layers. So this is the forest floor, that is the soil. Okay, so on the soil, the first layer that you have is herbaceous vegetation, herbs. So your grasses, your soft stemmed plants, they all grow up to a height of maximum 1 meter. Then you have above that, you have another layer which is called as shrubs. They grow up to 2 to 3 meters. They have woody stem. Then you have your canopy layer. So this is your canopy layer. Then few trees, they emerge out of the canopy. Some trees, they are more taller. So this is called as emergent layer. Right, so you have different layers. So this is called as stratification. Okay, so fractionation or layering or stratification in the community is caused by gradations in the external factors like water levels, temperature, light. Now, for example, so if you come down from mountain area to the plain areas, so from the mountains, if you descend to the plain areas, you see a gradual change in the vegetation, right? In the mountains, you have coniferous trees. When you come down at the bottom, you have evergreen type of vegetation. Then you have deciduous type of vegetation. Then you have grasslands, right? So you see difference in the communities. So all of them are plant communities. पूरा plant community की बात कर रहे हैं. We are talking about the plant communities, but you see there is a difference as you descend from mountainous region to plain areas. So when you descend from mountainous regions to plain areas, temperature is reducing, wind speed is reducing, light is reducing. So there are many factors that are changing, and because of change in these factors, the vegetation type also changes. Within the plant community, you have again this stratification or fractionation. So different strata or layers of the forest community receive different degree of light intensity, providing vertical stratification to the community structure. Now let us take the example of tropical rainforest. So in the tropical rainforest, the tallest trees, they receive the maximum light. So only, I mean, very little amount of light reaches the soil at the bottom. Okay, so maximum light is intercepted by the tall trees. That is why you also have epiphytes. So these epiphytes, because of lack of light, they climb, they are present on the tree branches to get the light. So different strata or layer of the forest community receives different amount of light intensity, which provides for stratification. So gradients in the physical environment of the community causes horizontal layering or patterns among the species. So you also have horizontal layering also because of the changes in the environment. So temperatures, water availability, if it changes horizontally, that means from one area to another area, there is also partitioning in the community. So you have different types of plants in different areas. So in the heavy rainfall areas, you have plenty of vegetation, right? Evergreen vegetation. Then you have, if you go to subtropical areas, you have deciduous type of vegetation. If you go to desert areas, so horizontally also, if you change the place, if you move from one place to another place, because of the changes in the temperatures, because of the changes in the water availability, community also changes. In the deserts, you have cactus. In the where there is enough rainfall, you have mesophytes. In the aquatic environment, you have hydrophytes. Okay, so difference in the amount of factors such as nutrients and water, they play a significant role in the stratification. So forest animals, they also live in different substrata, and many of them, they shift between the substratum. Now to explain it, sorry, we can give the examples to explain this particular uh, statement. Now you see, in forest you have different layers, right? So at the bottom we have floor, forest floor. You write down these examples. At the bottom you have forest floor. Then you have understory. that is your herbs. Okay, herbs and shrubs. Then you have your emergent, sorry, canopy layer. अच्छा, ऊपर से नीचे जा रहे हैं. It's okay. Forest floor is at the bottom. So I have written it first, but it is at the bottom. Canopy layer. Then you have your emergent. Few of the trees, they emerge out of the canopy layer. They come out of the canopy layer of the roof. They emerge out of the canopy layer. Now you see there are different type of animals living in different type of zones or different layers, right? If you see the forest floor, you generally see insects, right? You have decomposers. So by decomposers, I mean fungi, bacteria. Okay, amphibians, reptiles, and few mammals. They are present in the forest floor. Okay, squirrels, rats, rabbits. All right. So they generally live in the forest floor. That is in that layer on the soil. Then herbs and shrubs. Understory mein you have birds. Some birds they make nest in their shrub layer or herb layer. Some mammals and insects. Few insects. Okay, birds they also make nest in the shrub layer. Then in the canopy layer there are some organisms like arboreal mammals, squirrels, monkeys. Okay, then you have mammals like squirrels, monkeys, sloth. So sloth is a very slow moving animal. Sloth. Okay, leopards. See, yeah, you can say leopards. They generally uh, climb up the trees so that their prey, okay, the kill is not stolen away by other animals. To prevent that, they climb up the trees, generally with the prey. So they take the kill with them, they go on top of the trees and sit there, and leisurely they will feast on it to prevent other larger predators to snatch it from them, generally. Okay. Then we have some reptiles, you have lizards, snakes are also there. In emergent layer you have birds, large birds like your bird of prey, eagles, bird of prey. Now in different layers, see, forest animals live in different substratum and many of them may shift between the substratum. Now we have these examples where they are living in different layers. Now some of them they move from one substratum to another substratum. Okay, so for example birds and mammals, they move between substratum. And birds they will come down to eat insects or worms and they will again fly away to their nest. Mammals they may roam on the, just say for example leopard ka tha. So they move to the trees when they are threatened. that their prey will be snatched, they will move on to the trees and they will rest there. They will come down for the prey again and they will move on. So they move between the substratum, right? So mammals, birds, these are two group of animals that move between the substratum. Now I guess you have an idea what I'm saying. Generally they live within their substratum, but some of them they move between the substratum. Okay, so the properties or requirements and adjustment of one substratum can be like the same substratum of different community somewhere else in the world. So that is why we have biomes, right? So biomes can be of different on different continents, but they have similar type of characteristics. Okay, so for example, forest floor of one community in one country share common requirements and adjustment to the community in second country, although these countries are geographically separated. So we have tropical rainforest in Africa also. We have some traces, I mean some area in India, some in your Indonesia, that island groups. So there also we have tropical rainforest. We have tropical rainforest in South America also. So they share some common features, though they are geographically well apart. There is oceans between these lands, but they have some common features. They share similar characteristics, right? So the animals living in such geographically separated but similar substratum. So the forest floor, the animals living in the forest floor in your South America, Africa, in Asia, they have similar characteristics. They have similar features, their traits, they have similar type of prey. So similar type of requirements. So these animals which are living in the same substratum but in a different geographical area. So African forest floor animals, South American forest floor animals, Asian forest floor animals, they have some traits in common. They have some characteristics common between them. So these animals which are geographically apart but have similar traits or similar requirements, they are called as ecological equivalents. These are ecological equivalents. Got it? They are in different zones, different geographical areas, well separated between, I mean, but they have similar characteristics or similar requirements. They live in the similar substratum. So these are called as ecological equivalents. Now, horizontal zonation. So we have seen vertical zonation. Now, what about horizontal zonation? So let me again mention the same example in case of plants. So when you are moving away from mountainous region to plains and to semi-arid region and ultimately to some aquatic ecosystem like a very large lake or into the oceans, right? So there is different plant communities living in different zones. So in mountain regions you will have a different plant community, in plains you have a different plant community, if you come to semi-arid forest you have a different plant community, when you go into the aquatic ecosystem where there is a large water body, the plant community will be there, but it will be different. So as you are moving from one place to another place laterally, not vertically but laterally, again there is a shift in the community. So you see same plant community mein hi, within the plant community you see different types of species in different areas based on their requirement. So spatial arrangement of community species exhibit patterns, and based on these patterns the community is divided into sub communities. So you have mesophytes, you have hydrophytes, you have xerophytes. Okay, so if distribution pattern is horizontal it is called as zonation layering. स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन नहीं बोलते हैं इसको, जोनेशन बोलते हैं if it is horizontal. Vertical है then it is called as stratification. Okay, so horizontal zonation. Now let us move on to another concept which is called as periodicity. So periodicity is basically an event which is happening regularly, or there is a repetition, cyclical occurrence. That is periodicity. It is happening regularly at some interval, daily or yearly or seasonally, but it is happening regularly, okay, with a specific time interval. So that is called as periodicity. So this includes the study. So periodicity in ecology includes the study of various life processes such as respiration, growth, reproduction in various seasons of the year in the dominant species of a community. Now, if the dominant species is a tree species or a plant community, so you are studying the plant community, how the seeds are dispersed, when it comes to flowering, all those things. If it is an animal group, we are studying that particular, how it is reproducing, when it is the breeding cycle of that particular animal. Okay, so when you're studying the various life process of a dominant species in a community, that is called as periodicity. So the reoccurrence of these important life processes at regular intervals in a year and their manifestation in the nature is termed as periodicity. So this is a cyclic event. Okay, periodicity bolte hain isko. So there are some events that happen on daily scale or daily, they happen in every 24 hours cycle. So daily periodicity or your circadian rhythms, so based on the 24-hour cycle. So daily cycles of behavior and physiology such as sleeping, you sleep at night, you wake up in the morning based on the sun, right? Walking, foraging, you search for the food and other activities. So these are regular daily activities. Okay, so daily cycles of behavior, that is daily periodicity. Then seasonal periodicity is there. So regular annual patterns driven by seasonal changes in temperature, rainfall, and light. So breeding cycle, we have seen the examples that light can induce or it can start the breeding cycle, the duration of the light, right? Photo period bolte hain usko. So temperature, rainfall, light, because availability of water, rainfall will ensure availability of vegetation. Availability of vegetation will ensure survival of the population. So migration, so you see that in the birds. So Siberian cranes or your falcons, Amur falcons, they move from the Siberian region to warmer regions during the winter and they go back again. So it is dictated by seasons. So the availability of food is not there, so they migrate to warmer regions, right? So this is seasonal periodicity. So in the plants you have flowering, they flower in a particular season, fruiting will happen in a particular season, they happen in a particular season. Then in animals, reproduction, so breeding cycle based on the amount of duration of the light period, migration based on the availability of food or based on, I mean, for searching for mates or for food. Hibernation, for example, in polar bear in winter it will go into hibernation only in winter, in summer it will hunt and eat. So these are seasonal periodicity, so these are occurring at a regular interval, so they are repeating again and again. So this is cyclic event. So when you are studying the behavior or processes that happen at regular intervals in dominant species in the ecosystem, then it is called as periodicity. You understood the concept of periodicity? It is not that difficult, simple concepts are there. Okay, then we have ecotone. Okay, so ecotone, to put it in very simple terms, it is a transition zone. Okay, so it is a transition zone between two ecosystems. So you have forest ecosystem and you have aquatic ecosystem. So where the land meets the water body, so there is no sharp boundary between these two ecosystems. Sharp line नहीं है कि यहाँ इस line से forest खत्म और इस line से ये शुरू हो जाएगा. There is a zone of transition. So there is a you can say quite a broader region where slowly you can see the shift from terrestrial ecosystem to aquatic ecosystem. So this is a zone. It is not a sharp line, but it is a zone. Okay, it is a thick zone between two ecosystems. So it is a transition zone. So it does have characteristics of both the ecosystems. Okay, so because it has characteristics of both the ecosystems, it has a unique type of climatic conditions. So the flora and fauna that is found in this particular zone, that is also unique. The biodiversity is higher in this zone. Okay, so let us start with the introduction. So ecotone, what is it? It is a zone of junction or a transition area between two biomes or two diverse ecosystems. So if you're moving from terrestrial ecosystem to aquatic ecosystem, it is not a sharp boundary that divides these two ecosystems, but there is a zone. Okay, so there is a transition zone where slowly the terrestrial ecosystem will transform into aquatic ecosystem, where you will have characteristics of both aquatic and terrestrial ecosystem. For example, here you can see in this example, so here you have terrestrial ecosystem 1, here you have aquatic ecosystem 2, but there is a zone where it has both the characteristics. So you see plants also, you see water also. So this is a transition zone. So it has characteristics of both these ecosystems. So there are some animals which are specially adapted to this transition zone. So unique species you will find it there. The biodiversity or the number of species existing in this particular zone is higher compared to both the ecosystems. So for example, mangrove forest, it represents a transition zone, ecotone between marine and terrestrial ecosystem. So where land ends and your sea or the ocean is starting, so you have mangrove forest there. So they represents the ecotone between the terrestrial and marine ecosystem, right? Mangrove forest. So there are species which are unique to that particular ecosystem, especially birds. Okay, so other examples are grassland, that is between the forest and the desert. So grassland between forest and the desert. So for this, you imagine the Sahel region. Okay, savanna type of grasslands are there between the equatorial forest or your tropical forest and the Sahara desert. You have a grassland region. Now that is a very broad region. Just I'm giving you a equivalent example, right? So this is a zone of transition. So between a forest and a desert, there is a grassland. Okay, so these grasslands are transition zone. The biodiversity here is high. Now, because especially case of birds, so birds, so here, this in this transition zone, you have vegetation. Obviously, it is not completely dry. You see shrubs. So you have um, feeding. You have plenty of food available for the birds, like insects. Birds will catch the insects because they can see the ground clearly. It is not covered by thick forest, so they can see the ground clearly. They can capture the insects and they will eat, and they also have shelter to have their nest and to have children or to have offspring. They also have vegetation to for shelter, and they also have plenty of insects to feed on. So this transition zone will have higher diversity of bird species, right? So then you have an estuary. between the fresh water and the salt water. So estuary will also have unique type of species. So these are examples of ecotones. So this is the transition zone between two different ecosystems. Okay. Now, how ecotones are formed? Now, because this is unique, so we need to understand it better. So how it is formed? So there are no sharp boundaries. So obviously there will be so slow transition. Exact sharp boundary nahi hai that the trees will stop here and from here your water will start. No. So there is a gradual transition. This means there is a delicate zone where the blending of flora and fauna occurs. So this region is called as ecotone. So there is a blending of flora and fauna from both the communities. Okay. So these regions form due to variety of factors, because of the availability of water, because of the availability of shelter. So many characteristics of both the communities, they combine here, they blend here. So giving unique characteristics to this particular community. So this is why ecotones are very common in the mountain ranges, because of the wide variety of climatic conditions observed on the slopes. So you have different amount of sunlight available on one particular slope compared to the other slope. So the because of the availability of sunlight, the vegetation from one slope will be totally different from other slope. So that is why in Himalayan regions you have lot of biodiversity, because even the aspect, the amount of sunlight which is reaching the slope will entirely shift the flora and fauna of that region. So it will be very different from the other side. So apart from these marshes, mangroves, coastal ecosystem are great examples of ecotonal regions. So where your terrestrial ecosystems merge into aquatic ecosystems. So there is a delicate zone in between them. Characteristics क्या है ecotone के? So these, it may be a narrow or a wider zone. So wider zone means between the forest and desert there is a wide grassland, or it may be very narrow between the grassland and forest. So between grassland, so as a plain grassland hai, so from here you have your forest trees. You might have seen it in many movies where a person is running away from a castle where the soldiers are running after that particular person. So here soldiers are after this particular person. This person is running away, and you see here small shrubs, they will be here, right? And this person, he will suddenly disappear once he enters into the forest. So this is a plain area, grassland hai, and suddenly forest with a small zone. There will be small shrubs, one or two shrubs, or two to three, you can say rows of shrubs, and suddenly forest will start. Have you seen this in many period movies, in fantasy movies in Hollywood? You see the person running away on a horse. Suddenly there are two to three small shrub rows, and then suddenly forest will start. Right. So grassland and between the forest, the zone is narrow, but between the forest and the desert, you have a broader zone. So your Sahel region, savanna forest, grassland is there between the Sahara desert and your uh, tropical forest. So as it is a zone of transition, it has conditions that are intermediate between the two adjacent ecosystems. So it has characteristics of both. So the conditions are somewhat in between the two ecosystems. So it is not exactly like grassland, it is not exactly like the forest. So somewhere in between. So intermediate characteristics of the two ecosystems. So hence it is a zone of tension. It has both the characteristics. Both the ecosystems are pulling it. So that is why we call it is in a tension, because it has the characteristics of both these ecosystems. So well-developed ecosystems contain some organisms which are entirely different from that of adjoining communities. So some organisms that you find in these ecotones, they are very unique. They're adapted to these special conditions, because this is not totally like ecosystem A, not totally like ecosystem B, somewhere in between. So these animals, they also adapted to these conditions, and now they are unique. So they are only seen in these ecotones. So ecotones can be natural or these can be man-made also. So for example, ecotone between agricultural field and a forest is a man-made one. So we cut down the forest and there is a transition zone. So this may be very narrow. Just after the agricultural field, your trees may start. So this is a man-made ecosystem, man-made ecotone, or it can be natural also. For example, here, so it can be man-made or it can be natural also. And why they are important? Because the diversity of the biological diversity of ecotones is very high. They are very rich in with respect to number of species. So because they have characteristics that are intermediate of the two ecosystems, there is a unique type of climate or unique type of environment in this type of zone. So this transitioning zone region boasts species richness and elaborate biodiversity. They contain animals and plants from both the ecosystems. So that is why the richness is even higher than the individual ecosystems. So both the animals and plants from the two ecosystems, they are found in this particular transition zone. So moreover, in ecotones, certain other species that are specially adapted to living in this zone. There are now unique species that are specially adapted to these conditions. So obviously from both the ecosystems, animals may come and go, right? They are living in this zone from both the communities. From both aquatic ecosystem and both terrestrial ecosystem, you will see the animals. So from animals from grassland, animals from your forest and animals from desert, they are found in this transition zone. But there are some which have specially adapted to these conditions. So therefore, the variations produced in such areas contribute to increased biodiversity. So it is very susceptible to climate change. Okay. So it is very susceptible. Now, for example, some animals that are very unique to this particular transition zone are amphibians, birds. Okay. So related to this ecotone, there is a concept called as edge effect. So border, this zone or the transition zone is between two ecosystems. Okay. So literal meaning of the term edge is outside the limit of a surface or an area. So in our context, we are talking with respect of, regarding the ecotone. So edge effect relates to outer limit of a particular ecosystem. So we are generally discussing the ecotones here, which implies that there are two ecosystems to be considered. So aquatic ecosystem and your forest ecosystem, or forest and desert ecosystem. Between them, you have grassland. So it is a transition zone between the two ecosystems. So from animals from both the ecosystem, they venture into this area. So we observe increase in diversity. So many species are found in this transition zone. So richness with respect to species diversity is greater compared to either of the ecosystems. So therefore, we observe an increase in population and diversity of plant and animal species in this particular zone. So this increase in the biodiversity, this increase in the species richness in this transition zone, in this ecotone, this is called as edge effect. So ecotone is a transition zone. Edge effect is the result of formation of that ecotone. So edge effect is increase in the richness in the biodiversity, increase in the number of species, increase in the population because of the formation of ecotone. So this richness is called as increase in the richness or increase in the biodiversity is called as edge effect. The transition zone is called as ecotone. Increase in the richness of the biodiversity is called as edge effect. Now you should know the difference between these two. Okay. So the influence caused by contrasting characteristics of the two adjacent ecosystem causes such changes. So ये increase in biodiversity क्यों हो रहा है? Why this edge effect? Why the population or the diversity is higher in this transition zone? Because it has characteristics of both the ecosystems. Okay. It has contrasting characteristics of both the ecosystems. That is why it is unique. Both the animals or animals and plants from both the ecosystem, they are present in this particular zone. So best example of edge effect can be mangroves. So it supports different types of animals and plant species. So they are adapted to both land and water. They have adaptations to survive in the you can say stagnant water, to tolerate the salt concentration. So it has developed certain traits. So mangrove vegetation supports animals and plant species that are adapted to live both in land and water. Okay. So these are called as edge species. So animals and plants which are living in this zone, they are called as edge species, especially your amphibians. So you have frogs, toads, salamanders. Then you have your birds. So blue jay, just a minute. So you have blue jays, the robins. So these are passerines, okay? Blue jay, robins, woodpeckers. So if you need to write the examples of these edge species, you can give the examples of amphibians and birds. Okay. So in terrestrial ecosystem, edge effect is especially applicable to birds. You see a lot of bird species in the grasslands because so this is a transition zone between forest and between the desert. Now this transition zone has both the characteristics. That means you don't have very large trees and not the entire soil will not be covered with vegetation. So these birds can easily look for food, insects. They can easily capture insects and eat them. But it is not that there will not be any trees. Yeah, predominantly grass will be there, but there will be tree species. So they can find shelter and also they can easily find food. They can escape from their preys and they can also get plenty of food. So there is lot of diversity of bird species in this terrestrial transition zones. Okay. So we're not talking about the forest and the aquatic ecosystem. No, between two terrestrial ecosystems like your forest and desert, there is a grassland in between. So between the two terrestrial ecosystems, the ecotones, you can especially see the richness in the biodiversity of birds in those cases. Now, last concept in our uh, community ecology before we go into the interspecific interaction. So specifically we have to cover the interspecific interactions, mutualism, parasitism, predation, all those concepts, amensalism, commensalism. We will see that in the uh, after some time, but this is the last concept. So ecological niche. Hmm. So this is the function or role played by the organism, function or role of the organism. It is ecological niche of an organism. So It is the unique functional role and position of a species in its habitat or ecosystem. So ecological niche is the unique functional role played by the species in a ecosystem. Okay, so many species may be present in a habitat, but they are performing different roles. For example, plants, they are photosynthesizing, they are the primary producers. Then you have microorganisms, they are so decomposers primarily, so they mineralize the nutrients, right? Then you have your herbivores, they have a unique position in the food chain. They consume food, they consume plants in the form of food, and they are prey for predators. They are the food for predators. So every organism is playing a specific role in the ecosystem. So this specific function or the role is called as ecological niche. Okay, so functional characteristics of a species in its habitat is referred to as niche. What role it is playing, so you can refer to as, so यहाँ पर एक homology, sorry, there is an analogy here. Address is your habitat. So where does the organism live? That is the habitat or the address of the organism. What does it do? What job or what function it plays, or what is the function of the organism? What role it plays in the ecosystem? That is the niche. So where it lives is the address. Habitat of a species is like address where it lives. Whereas niche can be thought of as its profession. That is, what activities and what role does it play? That is the niche. So habitat and niche, these are the two different aspects. Now, a niche is unique, okay, for a species. So a niche is unique for a species. While many species, they share same habitat, they share the same location, no two species in a habitat can have the same niche. No two species can have the same role or the same function, same niche. This is because of competition with one another until one is displaced. So this is called as, write it down, please write it down. Previously there has been a question on this. So competitive exclusion, so what does it say? This was given by Georgi Gauss. Georgi F. Gauss, he was the person who gave this principle. Now, what this principle of competitive exclusion says is that no two species, no two species can have same ecological niche. Okay, so no two species living in a particular habitat can have the same ecological niche in the long term. For a short period of time, yes, they can perform the same function, but in long term it is not possible. याद रखना, in long term it is. So suppose there are two different predator species. So these two predators, one is bit larger, okay, let us say leopards and tigers or some other predators. Two predators, okay, so they are playing a similar role. Their ecological niche is same. They are performing the same function. They are the top carnivores. Okay, in the food chain, they are the top carnivores. Now, In short term, if there is plenty of prey available, there is plenty of food, so there won't be any competition. So both the predators are happy in sharing, or not intentionally, but they have plenty of food, they are not struggling to find the prey. So in short term, when there is plenty of food available, there won't be any problem for both the predators. So because they are playing same role, they have the same ecological niche. In short term, there won't be any problem, but in long term, obviously there will be competition for food. So these two predators, they will compete. Okay, and this competition between them will lead to elimination of one species, or that species will emigrate to some other area, they will move to some other area because the larger predator will kill it. It will move to some other area, emigration will happen, or it will change its niche, it will adapt, it will change the prey, it will use some other tactics so that there is no direct competition with the larger predator. Okay, so no two species can have same ecological niche in the long term. For short term, yes, they can share, but in long term there will definitely be competition, and it will lead to elimination of one species, because the larger one, the better competitor will finish it off, or the one of the species will move away because of the competition in search of some other to some other habitat, or it will change the prey base, it will adapt, it will change the prey, it will eat on something else, so to avoid direct competition. You're getting it? So there was a question, so I will just read it out. Okay, just listen it to it carefully. So with reference to ecological niche, consider the following statements. With reference to ecological niche, consider the following statements. So shall I write it down? Consider the following statements. Okay, so A, two different species can have totally overlapping niche in the same community. This is the first statement. Okay. Statement B, in case of total overlapping of niche, okay, both the species continue to survive through mutualism. So mutualism is equally beneficial for both the species. So obviously mutualism तो नहीं होगा, competition है ना. Okay, so one, the state ये जो है one only, which is true, right? Two only, both one and two, neither. Yes, यहाँ पर कभी भी टाइम नहीं लिखा है, they have not given any time mentioning, so we have to take it in long term, right? So two different species can have totally overlapping niche in the same community? No, they cannot have in the long term. One will be replaced, and they do not continue through or survive through mutualism. Obviously, there will be competition. So such type of conceptual questions might appear in the examination. Okay, so that was your uh, basics in community ecology. Now we are moving to the interactions between species. What type of interactions can exist between the species in a community? Now, are you comfortable? Shall we move on? So I want to complete it today so that we can start a new topic on Monday. Right? Ecosystem ecology, food chains, food webs, population pyramids, pyramids of biomass, that we will discuss on Monday. So I want to complete interspecific interactions. Now, so interaction between the species can be of different types. So here symbolically we have representation here. So it can be of primarily 6 types, right? So it can be mutualism, where both the species are benefiting. So plus sign means both the species are benefiting. So we'll see examples, then you will understand it better. But here, how it is represented, that is given in the table. Now competition. So when two individuals are competing, suppose there is a boxing match between two individuals, obviously both will share the blows. So it will be negatively impacting both the individuals, right? So in competition, the better competitor, the stronger one, obviously will win at the end, but it will also share, it will also get hammered, right, to certain extent. When both are competing, it is negatively impacting both of them. No one will perform to its, I mean, no one will be getting the best. Both of them will be damaged, but one will win at the end, but there will be negative impact on both of them. Competition, both are negatively impacted. Now in predation, one, the predator will be getting food, prey will lose its life. So one will be negatively impacted, other will be positively impacted. In parasitism is also, one, the parasite is getting nutrition from the host, it is getting shelter and nutrition from the host. Host resources are being used. Host may be diseased. I mean, it is infected by the parasite. The host is being utilized. So host is losing nutrients or its vitality is coming down. The host will have negative, you can say, it will be negatively impacted because of the parasites. For example, malaria. So the protozoa is benefiting, it is reproducing, but it is negatively impacting the humans. Now we are getting fever and we are becoming weak. So it is negatively impacting the host. Then in commensalism, one species is gaining, but the other species, there is no effect. It is not benefiting, nor there is a negative effect. In case of amensalism, one species is negatively affected, whereas the other species, there is no effect. It is neither gaining or nor losing. So this is how symbolically you represent. Now let us dive into the examples, because in the exam, the examples are important, because they might give you uh, which of the following has mutualistic interaction, or which of the organisms show mutualism. So they will give you some examples, but you might have read some book or you might have covered some examples, but you don't know all the examples. So the chances are that if you have read it, you will remember the example, but otherwise you don't know. Some of the most of the animals, invertebrates especially, you don't even know the names. So if you are a student of zoology, then okay, but if you're not a student of zoology, then you might not even recognize what animal it is, or what kind of interaction it has. So if you have not read that example, the chances are you will get confused. So because you have never read it, it can be parasitism, it can be amensalism, it can be commensalism, it can be predation. You don't know. So try to cover as many examples as possible. In the material, I have given few examples, but I have added more examples in the presentation. So while you are going through, just add these examples to your notes. Okay. So examples are important. They will give you in the options and you will get confused. Okay. So we'll start with mutualism. Okay. So both the species are benefited. The main thing you have to remember here is both the species are benefited mutually. So between two species where both the species are benefited. Now this kind of the benefits, it can be in the form of protection, it can be in the form of pollination, a service, it can be in the form of dispersal, that is also a service, it can be in the form of provision of nutrients, that is a resource. So this interaction that is happening between the two species, it can be for protection, it can be for pollination, it can be for food provision, right, for different purposes. But the main thing is both the organisms are benefited with this relationship. So it can be of two types again: obligate mutualism, facultative mutualism. Obligate mutualism is basically where they will not be able to survive. They live in close proximity and they will not be able to survive without each other. Facultative means, yes, sometimes they come into this relationship and they can survive without the other species also. So that is facultative. Obligate is very close relationship. Okay. So the term interaction between the species in mutualism can be a short-term relationship or it can be long-term relationship. So it can be a short-term for a short period of time or it can be lifelong also. It depends upon the nature of the species involved. Okay. Smaller member of the interaction is called as mutualist, whereas the larger one is called as host. So in two species are interacting, the smaller species is called as mutualist, larger one is called as host. So you have to remember these terms. Okay. So there is not a very difficult concept, but it is very simple, factual. Remember the examples, that will help. So symbiosis. Now you see symbiosis, it is a you can say a broader concept than mutualism. Symbiosis is a broader concept than mutualism. Okay, you have different types of symbiotic association. So symbiosis is a closed and prolonged interaction. The main difference between the mutualism and symbiosis is it is very close interaction between the two species and prolonged interaction for long term between the two organisms of different species that benefit one organism or both. So symbiosis में दोनों को benefit होगा ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है. Mutualism, both the organisms they get benefited, but in symbiosis it is not necessary. One of the organism may be benefited, other may be impacted, or other may not be impacted at all. So symbiosis has been traditionally confused with mutualism, but symbiosis differs in that species exist in close association. So in symbiosis, क्लोज एसोसिएशन को हम लोग सिम्बायोसिस बोलते हैं. इट कैन बी फॉर शॉर्ट टर्म और लॉन्ग टर्म. Okay. So symbiosis can be of again different types. Symbiosis is much broader than mutualism. You remember it. Symbiosis is a broader category that consists of mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. So one of the organism may be benefited, other organism may be harmed, or other organism may not be affected, like in commensalism. In mutualism, both the organisms are benefited. Plus plus. It can be plus 0 or it can be plus minus. So Symbiosis is a very broader association or broader category. So within symbiosis, you have mutualism, you have commensalism, and parasitism. Closer association is called as symbiosis, closer and long-term association. So symbiosis is of two types depending upon the proximity of the involved species, whether they are very closely involved or not that close. So endosymbiosis, the interaction where one species is present in the body of another species, like a parasite. So one species is present inside the body of other species. In ectosymbiosis, the species are present in proximity but not within each other, not inside each other. So symbiosis is slightly broader term. Mutualism falls within the symbiosis. सिम्बायोसिस और म्यूचुअलिज्म में कंफ्यूज मत होना. Symbiosis can be of negative interaction also, like in case of parasitism. Mutualism is beneficial for both. So you have obligate mutualism and facultative mutualism. We have two types of mutualism. So in examples also, you need to understand which one is facultative and which one is obligate. So obligate mutualism is the interaction between different species where interaction is essential for their survival. So obligate mutualism mein survival is dependent upon this association. So for survival of both these species, this association is important. They cannot survive without each other. So that is called as obligate. Compulsory. They have to be in association. Otherwise, they will not be able to survive. They are forced to depend upon each other. Right. So obligate mutualism is also termed as exclusive mutualism, as the interactions are very specific between two specific species. ऐसे नहीं कि generally किसी के साथ भी होगा. No. Between two specific species. They are very specific, and absence of this interaction results in death of one or both the species. So they are dependent on this interaction. Their life depends upon it. They cannot survive without this association. So example in this case is lichens. So lichen is an association between algae and fungi. So as you know, alga is an autotroph. It can produce its own food, but because it is primary producer, it requires nutrients, right? It requires nitrogen and essential nutrients, essential elements to survive, right? It will produce its own food, but it also requires certain nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, all those nutrients. So these nutrients are provided by the fungi. It will also give shelter. So algae, here you see algal cells, these round cells, these are your algal cells. Okay, so these are your fungal hyphae, these branches, these are your fungal hyphae. So fungus, what is it getting out of it? Fungus, because it is a heterotroph, it cannot produce its own food. So fungus is getting the carbohydrates, nutrients from the algae. Algae is producing the food. So it shares some of the food with the fungus. Fungus is providing nutrients and shelter to the algae. So it is an obligate mutualism consisting of relation between the fungus and algae. So both the species, for survival of both the species, it is necessary association. They will not be able to survive without this mutualistic association. So example. So what is fungus getting and what is alga getting in return? There is another example. So this example is additional example. Please write it down. Just remember the name. What is it getting from it, that once you read it, you will remember it as soon as you hear the name of the associating species, then you will recollect it. But just remember the name. What are they getting? You will remember it automatically once you read it. So yucca plant and yucca moth. So it belongs to Asparagaceae family and yucca subfamily, agave americana. So you know the agave species, right? So these are desert species basically. Asparagaceae members से belong करता है. Asparagaceae family and agave subfamily, I guess. So yucca plant, so it also has roots which are edible. Edible roots are there. They are processed and they are eaten. They look like sweet potato, but their bark is slightly thicker. Hmm. Sweet potato skin is very thin, but here the skin is slightly thicker. So yucca plant and yucca moth, the association between these two, and it is the only insect species which is pollinating the plant. So yucca plant cannot survive without this species of insect. And the insect, it during the pollination, when it is pollinating the flower, it will lay eggs in the ovary of the flower. So in the ovary of the flower, it will lay eggs. So on the surface, right? As soon as the larvae they hatch from the eggs, they will feed on the seeds of this yucca fruit. So basically the ovary, seeds will start to form. So some of the seeds are eaten away by the larvae. They will not eat all the seeds, because the plant also has to survive. Their seeds need to be dispersed. So the larvae, they will not feed on all the seeds, but some of them, which is necessary for their survival. So the moth larvae consume only a fraction of seeds, preventing the destruction and maintaining net positive benefit for the plant, making it a stable mutualism. So what is the plant getting from it? Plant is pollinating the species, and what is insect getting from it? So insect lays the eggs on the ovary. The larvae which hatch, they will feed on the seeds, but they will not eat all the seeds, but few of them, which is necessary for plant survival also. So yucca plant, solely it relies on the yucca moth for pollination, and it is the only pollinator that can transfer the pollen because of its unique features. So it has tentacles that can collect the pollen. So yucca moth lays eggs inside the yucca flower's ovary. So when the larvae hatch, they feed on some of the developing seeds, providing them food, while pollination ensures that plants' overall reproductive success is maintained. So plant is getting pollinated, so it is reproducing because of this pollination, but insect is getting, so what is insect getting from it? Its larvae. So its chances of survival also increases. So its larvae are getting food in the early stages, so they will eat some of the seeds, not all of them, so that plant will also survive, it will also reproduce. Got it? Yucca plant and yucca moth. This is the moth. So you write down these examples, just yucca plant and yucca moth. वो example लिख लो. Because in the options, which one of these organisms have mutualistic relation, ऐसे बोल के दे देगा. So if you have not studied, so try to go through as many examples as possible. Now, once you read them once, you will remember it. It is not that difficult, huh? याद रहेगा. Once you read it in detail, you will remember. Then termite and protozoa. So you have termite and a protozoa, Trichonympha. So termite and protozoa association. Now termites, they eat on the wood. They feed on the wood, but they cannot digest the cellulose on their own. So for digesting these wood or the cellulose present in the wood, they require cellulase enzyme. So they have a protozoa in their hindgut. In their hindgut, they have a protozoa called as Trichonympha. So this protozoa produces cellulase enzyme, which is helping the termite to digest the wood. So termite chews wood and provides shelter and habitat in its gut to a protozoa. So what is the protozoa getting? It is getting food, because the termites are continuously eating food. So This wood supply will be there continuously for the protozoa, and it is getting shelter also. What is the termite getting? Termite is able to digest the food. Termite is able to digest the food and absorb the nutrients. So it is, the protozoa is also getting steady supply of wood particles. So their nutrition is also ensured. They have a shelter, the protozoa. Termites, they are able to digest the food. So protozoa chemically breaks down the cellulose through cellulase enzyme. Okay, it will break down the complex cellulose into simpler carbohydrates so that the termite can easily absorb it. So termites cannot digest the wood on their own without the protozoa. Okay, then there is a third associate, the third individual also. So यहाँ पर तीन parties हैं, ऐसा नहीं है कि A और B है बीच में. So A is your termite, B is your protozoa. There is another third organism, that is, it is living inside the bee. Okay, so there is an association of three organisms. So A is a termite, B is a protozoa. So inside the protozoa there are bacteria. So inside the protozoa there are bacteria, right? But these bacteria, they are not necessary for the digestion of the cellulose, because that protozoa itself can produce. So bacterial symbionts जो है, the bacteria जो है, it is not necessary for the digestion of wood, but they are present in the Trichonympha protozoa. They also assist in digestion, but they are not necessary. They also assist in breaking down the complex food, complex cellulose into simpler sugars. So without the protozoa and the bacterial symbionts present inside the protozoa, the termite will not be able to digest the food and it will die. It will not be able to absorb the nutrients. So what are these bacteria? Candidatus endomicrobium trichonymphae, Candidatus desulfovibrio trichonymphae. So these are two of the species that live inside the Trichonympha. So Trichonympha is a protozoa that lives inside the gut, hind gut of your termite. So this Trichonympha protozoa produces cellulase enzyme, which helps in digestion of cellulose in the wood. So what is the protozoa getting? It is getting food and shelter. Termite को क्या मिल रहा है? Termite is able to digest the food and absorb the food. Bacteria is also present inside the protozoa, but they are not necessary for the digestion. They also assist for digestion, but they are not necessary. Okay, so termite and protozoa, this is another example of your mutualism. Obligate mutualism. Then coral and algae. So this is also an example of obligate mutualism. For their survival, this association is necessary. Right? So corals are basically anthozoa. And they belong to family, they belong to phylum Cnidaria. Right? So corals. So these are soft-bodied animals. So, and they are sessile. That means they cannot move. They are sedentary. So once they cannot move, their soft body can be attacked by the predators. Right? And because they cannot move, they cannot go in search of food. They remain static. They are sessile. They remain in one position. So to protect themselves, they secrete a calcium carbonate shell around their body. So this is the exoskeleton. So this is the organism, right? They have a calcium carbonate shell around them, and they can retreat into the shell. Once they sense danger, they will retreat. Their tentacles will go inside. Now, these corals, In the adult stage, they become sessile, they remain at one place, they cannot move. But in the larval stage, they can swim in the larva stage, but once they settle down, they will become sessile. So what happens once the reproduction takes place? So once the organism is produced, it will swim in the water. So gametes will unite, zygote will be formed, embryo, from that you have a larva. So this will swim in the free water, and during the swim it will capture the algae. So ये जो है तुम्हारा fertilization हो गया, development, and while it is swimming it will capture these algae, and once it captures it will settle down. Okay, so these algae, they will help the organism to get its nutrition. So you can see in corals you might have seen different colors, right? In the coral reefs you see different colors. That is because of the pigmentation of the algae. Algae की वजह से pigmentation आया है. You might also have learnt about coral bleaching. You might have read it. Coral bleaching. Coral bleaching is basically removal of the color. Bleach का मतलब क्या होता है? Bleach हो गया means color is removed. Why does the color remove? Why it is removed? What happens to the color? So once the algal association is gone, once the association between these two is broken, the corals, they will lose the color, because the color was because of algal pigmentation, pigments present in the algae, that was giving the color. So once the association is broken, the color is gone, the coral is bleached, right? So thermal pollution is the main culprit. So temperatures, if they increase beyond a certain limit, the association will break, and the coral bleaching, acidification of the oceans, if the pH becomes very acidic, then also this association might break. It may lead to coral bleaching. So this coral and the algae, they are in close association. Algae, it is getting shelter, it is getting carbon dioxide and all the minerals that it wants. Algae is producing food, and the coral, it does not have to move around for search of food, because algae is producing the food. So it is getting carbohydrates and nutritional requirements from the algae. Algae is getting shelter. So coral provides the zooxanthellae algae with a protected environment and carbon dioxide and other compounds needed for photosynthesis. So algae is producing carbohydrates to photosynthetic process. So zooxanthellae will provide the coral with energy through sugars and proteins, which is produced via photosynthesis, and it helps in waste removal also. जब भी CO2 प्रोड्यूस हुआ है, that will be utilized in photosynthesis. So both are benefiting. Okay. So this is also another example of obligate mutualism. Now let us look into facultative mutualism examples. So interaction where both the species are benefited, but these species can also exist independently of each other. Compulsory nahi hai association. It is not necessary for their survival. Whereas in obligate mutualism, they cannot survive without each other. Here, they can survive on their own. Okay, this association is not necessary for their survival, but it will be beneficial for both of them. If they are in association, beneficial for both of them. If they are not in association, okay, no harm, nothing will happen. They won't be killed or they won't die without the association. Okay, they can survive on their own also. Without this association also they can survive. So that is facultative mutualism. So benefits obtained from facultative mutualism are less than compared to the obligate mutualism. Obligate mutualism is necessary for survival. Okay, it is not as specific, यानी between two specific species के बीच में नहीं होता है. जैसे हमने पहले examples देखे out. So we have seen the examples. It is not very specific between two species, that like Trichonympha and your termites. It can be with different species. It is not very specific. It is not a very specific as obligate mutualism. Thus, it can exist between a variety of species. Like, for example, honeybees. Honeybees can pollinate different plant species. हनीबी और एक स्पेसिफिक फ्लावर स्पीशीज के बीच में नहीं है, जैसे युक्का प्लांट एंड युक्का मॉथ, they are specific species. The association is only between these specific species. But honeybees, they can pollinate a variety of different flower species or variety of fruit species, है ना? So now you understand facultative and obligate mutualism. So facultative mutualism can be described in one of the three ways. It can be resource mutualism. Both are getting some food or nutrients. Service resource mutualism, one is providing a service, other is providing food source. Or it can be service. Both are providing service to each other. So we'll see the examples and you will understand what is this service type. Like for example, in case of honeybees and flowers. Flowers are providing nectar, that is a resource. Honeybees are providing a service, they are pollinating. Now you understand service and resource. So example in case of service resource type of facultative mutualism is honeybees and flowering plants. So interaction between the flowers and honeybees, right? The flowers of the plant will provide nectar to the bee as a resource for nutrients for the bee, whereas bee will provide a service that it will pollinate. It will transfer the pollen and help in fertilization of the plants. Simple example. All right. Easy. You can read it, right? Then there is another example between aphids and ants. I guess you are following, right? It is very easy. Simple examples. Try to remember as many as possible. So once you read it, then you have to remember which one is facultative and which one is obligate. So sometimes you will get confused in that sense also. So aphids and ants. So they also have this mutualistic interaction, but it is facultative, right? They can survive without this association. So aphids. So aphids, they belong to class insecta. Ants also insects. They are also insects. Aphids are also insects, but they belong to different order. So they belong to class insecta. Okay, but they belong to different orders. एक हेमिप्टेरा है, एक आइसोप्टेरा है, ठीक है? So they belong to different orders. So ants and aphids, they have this facultative mutualism. Aphids provide the ants with a sugary liquid food called as honeydew. ये देख रहे हो, ये honeydew है. This is small drop that is produced from the rear side. This is basically excretion. So these aphids, they have piercing type of mouth parts. What they do is they will puncture the plant cells and they will suck the sap from the cells. So cells का जो protoplasm है उसको suck कर लेते हैं. Okay, they will suck the sap from the plants. Okay, the plants, if the plant is infected with large number of these aphids, the plant's leaf will curl. So there is curling of the leaves. It will lose turgidity. It will not expand, because once you have full of water, you will fully expand. But once the water is removed slowly, the leaf will start to curl like this. Okay. So aphids, they will extract plant juices. And obviously once they are eating liquid, they will excrete liquid. So they will excrete this sugary, this is rich in amino acids and sugars, sugary liquid. So this sugary liquid called as honeydew, it is formed by the ants. So ants will collect this sugary liquid from the aphids. So ants milk the sugary liquid from them. जैसे गाय का दूध निकालते हैं हम लोग, वैसे ही aphids से they will collect. We collect milk from cattle, right? In the same way, they will farm the aphids. They will collect or they will milk the honeydew from the aphids. So in return, ants are getting food, right? In return, they will protect the aphids from predators and parasites. So there are some beetles which are predators on these aphids. So ants will protect these aphids because they want honeydew. So survival of these aphids is necessary. So they will help these aphids. They will protect these aphids from other predators. Okay, and they also herd them like a dog will help in moving the herd of sheep from one area to another area. Dogs will move around and they will herd the sheep. In the same way, ants will herd the aphids to other parts of the plant or other plants. So they will help to move them to other plants and also help them by protecting them from predators. In return, ants are getting honeydew. Okay, so this honeydew is also harmful for the plants because once these aphids they secrete this honeydew on the plants, so this is a food source. Fungus will develop. This fungus will cover the areas of photosynthetic efficiency. Photosynthetic efficiency of the leaf will reduce because fungus will cover the leaves, surface of the leaf, so sunlight will not be able to reach. A sooty mold develops on the leaves. Leaf का surface पूरा dark sooty mold से cover हो जाता है. Photosynthetic efficiency will be reduced. So aphids and ants, facultative mutualism. Then you have another example where woolly bat and pitcher plant. Pitcher plant is insectivorous plant, Nepenthes. So these insectivorous plants. So this is one of the example. So you have sundew plant, you have Nepenthes, you have other plants also. Otherwise, you have Venus flytrap, which catches ऐसे खुला रहता है, and as they have bristles, sensitive bristles on their pad, and as soon as an insect lands, it will capture it. Venus flytrap, we call it. We have sundew plants where they have sticky tentacles. So Nepenthes, it has a pitcher shaped. So leaf का modification है. So these are modification of leaves. So these are insectivorous plants that develop or that grow in the areas where there is nitrogen deficiency. So these soils are deficient in nitrogen. So they depend upon insects for their nitrogen source. They kill and digest the insects for their nitrogen. So that is why they are called as insectivorous plants. So pitcher plant or Nepenthes. Okay. So it will give the shelter to your woolly bat. So this is the woolly bat which roost means temporary shelter. It provides temporary shelter for the woolly bat. Okay, and the woolly bat's body shape is such that it fits exactly into the pitcher plant and it does not slip below because it gets narrowed at the base, so it will not slip to the base where there are digestive juices. Otherwise, the bat will get digested. So bat will exactly fit into this spot so that it will not drop down, and it is a temporary resting place for the bat. So bat is also protected from other predators. And so bat is getting shelter in the Nepenthes plant. So what is plant getting from it? So this bat excretes guano. So its excreta will provide nitrogen for the plant. So pitcher provides a secure climate controlled shelter from predators and elements during the day, keeping it cool, while the plant's pitcher is shaped to accommodate the bat, snugly preventing it from falling into the digestive fluid below. So pitcher का शेप ऐसा होता है कि वो बैट को शेल्टर दे सके. It will not slip because the bottom is very narrow where the digestive juices are present. For the plant, what is the plant getting in return? So the droppings or the excreta of the bat, it will provide nitrogen, right? So this is another facultative mutualism. Then there is another example. Okay, so clownfish and anemone. So your Nemo, finding Nemo, right? So this Nemo, clownfish bolte hain, it is called as clownfish. So clownfish and sea anemone. So this is sea anemone which has tentacles, right? So sea anemone, it has venomous tentacles. So sea anemone or your coral species, so it has nematocyst which sting. So if it finds any predator, I mean, if it is in danger, if it feels like there is danger, it will sting the predators. To ward off the predators, it will sting. So these nematocysts, okay, they are a kind of protection mechanism. So anemones, venomous tentacles ward off predators that would otherwise eat the clownfish. So clownfish, what is it getting? So this close association. So clownfish and sea anemone, they are in association where both of them are getting benefit. What is the clownfish getting? So clownfish, it moves within the tentacles. So otherwise some other larger fish will come and eat the clownfish. So clownfish is protected because these tentacles will sting the other predators that will eat away the clownfish. So clownfish is getting protected within the tentacles. It will move safely within the tentacles. Now, there is also a danger that clownfish can be stuck, can be stung by the tentacles. But clownfish has a mechanism, right? So normally what happens is that clownfish, it develops a mucilaginous layer on its body which will not help in detecting. So this sea anemone, it will detect the presence of another organism through chemical cues. So once it touches, so it will identify. So it is a defensive mechanism through identification of the, once it touches the surface, so it will identify that there is a predator or there is another organism. So to ward off, it will sting it. But it cannot identify the clownfish. Clownfish has a mucilaginous layer over its body. So the sea anemone thinks that it is its own body, it is other tentacle. So it will not sting clownfish because it is not able to identify clownfish. It will misidentify clownfish as its own body. So it will not sting it. So clownfish can comfortably swim within the tentacles, but other animals, they will be stung by the tentacles. So clownfish is protected, right? So it lives safely within the tentacles without being stung. Now, what is sea anemone getting? So clownfish chases away butterfly fish, and other sea anemone eating fish. So clownfish will scare away the butterfly fish, which will eat the sea anemone. So sea anemone is also getting protection from the clownfish. Clownfish will also excrete, right? So clownfish feces provide essential nutrients like nitrogen for the sea anemone. So clownfish also helps in keeping the sea anemone clean and may also provide, improve the water circulation among in that area. So it will help in keeping sanitation and also proper water circulation. So both are getting benefited, but they can survive without another. So ये भी facultative mutualism का ही example है. Then another example of mutualism, that is trophic mutualism. So here nutrition. So trophic mutualism is a type of ecological interaction that involves transfer of energy and nutrients between two species. So this is resource mutualism. Both are getting resources. That is, this is no service. There is no service here, but both are getting resources. So here the example is mycorrhiza. So mycorrhiza, as the term implies, myco means fungus and rhiza is root. So mycorrhiza is basically association between fungus and roots of higher plants. So roots and fungus, the association is called as mycorrhiza. So mycorrhiza is not an organism on its own. Mycorrhiza कोई organism नहीं है. Mycorrhiza association को बोलते हैं. Myco and roots. Rhiza is roots, myco is fungus. Fungus और root के association को हम लोग mycorrhiza बोलते हैं. ये कोई individual organism नहीं है. So interaction where the species provide resources to one another in the form of nutrients and energy. Now, what is happening here? Fungus, as you know, it is heterotroph. It cannot synthesize its own food, so it has to depend upon other organisms, right? So fungus gets nutrients from the plants. Fungus is getting carbohydrates and other nutritional requirements fulfilled from the plants. Okay. Now what is plant getting in return? So plants, especially those plants which are living in nutrient poor soil, especially phosphorus. So this fungus, it mobilizes the phosphorus. So generally majority of the phosphorus that is present, it is in fixed form. Fixed in the sense phosphorus which is present in the soil may not be available to the plants. इसको बोलते हैं fixed phosphorus. It is present in the soil. Soil में है phosphorus, लेकिन वो plant available form में नहीं है. It is not in solution form. So it is fixed phosphorus in the soil. Okay. So fungus helps in mobilizing this phosphorus. So in plant nutrients NPK, after nitrogen, the second macronutrient is phosphorus. It is very important. It is a part of DNA, right? So phospholipids as a part of cell membrane. So phosphorus is also required in larger quantities. So this fungus helps in solubilizing or mobilizing the phosphorus, making it available to the plant. Okay. So mycorrhiza is also providing other benefits to the plant. So it helps in improving the resistance of the plants to fungal diseases. It improves its salinity tolerance. So it provides salinity tolerance. It also provides some of the, it helps in growth of those microbes which are beneficial for the plant. So plant growth promoting substances भी secrete करता है. So this mycorrhiza is beneficial in many respects. सिर्फ not only nutrition provision but also resistance भी improve करता है, cold tolerance भी improve करता है, salinity tolerance को भी improve करता है. So there are many benefits of this association. So it exists between two species, between species of two different trophic levels. One is autotroph, one is heterotroph. So that is why it is called as trophic mutualism. दो different trophic level पे जो organisms हैं उनके बीच में. The plant is getting phosphorus, okay, and cold resistance, disease resistance, all those things are there, okay, and fungus is getting nutrients from the plant. So there is a concept called as wood wide web. It refers to underground mycorrhizal fungal networks connecting the trees, enabling them to share nutrients and water. So different trees are connected through these fungus. So this is a network. It's a www world wide web and a वैसे ही wood wide web. So different trees are connected with each other through these cable networks. So these cable networks are hyphae, fungal hyphae. So different trees in the forest are connected to each other with the help of this fungus. They can signal each other. अगर एक ट्री पे कोई डिजीज या पेस्ट अटैक हुआ है तो इट कैन सेंड केमिकल सिग्नल टू अदर स्पीशीज दैट यू बी रेडी, आई एम बीइंग अटैक्ड, सो यू produce your defense mechanism so that you can tolerate the pest attack. So they can send chemical signals, they can warn about the disease, about the drought to other plants. So this is a kind of communication between the plants with the help of the fungus. So wood wide web refers to underground mycorrhizal networks connecting the trees, enabling them to share nutrients and information. So chemical signals also they can share, they can send chemical signals to each other. warning about the pest, droughts, okay, in a complex cooperative system, crucial for ecosystem health. And it challenges the concept that trees are competitors. So basically, trees, they require nutrients, and they are absorbing nutrients from the soil. So two trees, when they are very close to each other, they are competing with each other, right? So this concept that trees are competitors, two plants which are growing closely, they will compete for nutrients. But ये concept पहले नहीं था. Now they are sharing information. There is a cooperation between two plant species which are growing close to each other. So this challenges this concept that trees are always competitors. Yes, they will compete, but they will also share information. There is also cooperation between them. It highlights the mutualism and forest resilience. So this information sharing or chemical signals through which it can warn each other. Yeah, this is called as wood wide web. Okay. Then defensive mutualism. So there is service resource mutualism. Here the example is between acacia tree and pseudomyrmex ant. Pseudomyrmex ant. So myrex बोल रहा हूँ, myrmex. So service and resource. So ants are providing service, okay, whereas the plant is providing resource. So this is defensive mutualism. So ants live on these plants and they protect the plants from herbivores. जो भी खाने आएगा वो लोग, these ants will sting them and the herbivore will move away from the plant. So plant is getting protection and ants are getting food and shelter. So defensive mutualism is a type of service resource relationship where one species provides nutrients where other provides a protection against the predator or parasite. So ants are getting nutrition, they provide protection to the plant. So in simple words, defensive mutualism, that one species is defending the other species for reward. So ants are getting rewarded, plant is getting service from the ants, protection service. वो आते हैं ना मूवीज में, some local mob will go and collect protection fee from shopkeepers. Protection fee दो, हफ्ता हफ्ता बोलते हैं protection fee. So in the same way, here acacia plants, they produce newly enlarged thorns. They are called as bull's horn. So these thorns are swollen, these thorns are enlarged. They contain loosely arranged pith cells. So these cells are parenchymatous cells. Actually, they help in circulation of the nutrients. Okay, water and nutrients. They can also store nutrients sometimes. So these are very loosely arranged cells. So these pith cells can be easily removed. So ants can easily chew and remove the pith to create a hollow interior, which is the home for these ants. ये hollow interior में वो लोग रहते हैं. These ants, they live in these hollow spaces. You can see the hollow interior. The ants can live in these large size thorns. So these thorns were made up of loosely arranged pith cells. So ants can easily chew and empty it. Now there is a shelter for the ants. So small hole in thorn is used as home by ants. The plants also provide extra floral nectar. And apart from the flower, other parts of the plant also produces nectar. So ants, they eat this or they take this nectar from the base of the leaves. So ants, they protect the plant against various predators and parasites in return. So ants are getting food and shelter and they are providing protection to the plant. Acacia and pseudomyrmex ants, there is an association. So this is your defensive mutualism. ये भी obligate mutualism. This is also kind of obligate mutualism. Then hermit crab and sea anemone. See, what I'm doing is I'm trying to cover as many examples as possible because in the exam, the question will be based on examples. If you read one or two mutualism का एक mycorrhiza पढ़ लिया and suddenly you see different example. I am covering as many examples as possible. Hermit crab and sea anemone. So sea anemone we have also already seen. Clownfish and anemone, right? So these are sea anemone and hermit crab. So this association is one of the classical example. It is a classic example of mutualism, right? So anemones stinging tentacles, that is nematocyst, they deter the predator like fish and octopuses from attacking the crab's vulnerable soft abdomen. So the crab, what it does is it goes and sea anemone before the association starts. So crab with its arms, it will go and very gently taps the anemone. तो anemone को tap करके detach कर देता है. It will detach the anemone from the base and it will place it on its back. Crab will place it on its back, and as the crab undergoes metamorphosis, it requires a larger shell. Crab का भी size बड़ा होगा ना, so it requires a new shell. So new shell is produced whenever the shell is changing. The crab will slowly place it down. It produces a new shell, and again it will place it on the shell. So this association is for long term. Okay. So the anemone protects the crab from predators. And anemone, because it is a sedentary animal, it cannot move in search of food. So while crab is moving, anemone is also moving into new area. So it is getting food from, it does not, I mean, it cannot move on its own. It is a sedentary animal. But crab is moving. So while it is moving into new environments, giving more food for the sea anemone. So sea anemone can roam around now. And it is also a kind of camouflage. The crab can hide between the rocks, and sea anemone, it is a camouflage. It looks like it is growing on a rock. So it can prevent predators. So crab carries the anemone to new feeding grounds and provides access to fresh food particles. The water movement causes the crab, the water movement caused by the crab's movement delivers oxygen and food to the anemone. Crab may also defend anemone from its own. So anemones का जो predator रहता है, like for example butterfly fish, पहले बताया था example, एक anemone का attack करता है. So crab can attack those fishes which come to eat the anemone. So it also protects the anemone. So both are getting benefited. Hermit crab and sea anemone, marine mutualism का classical example है. Now last example of mutualism, almost this is the last example. So after this we'll finish. There is another small example. So these two examples are the last. Give me 5 minutes, we'll complete it. So dispersive mutualism. Now interaction between insects or animals and plants, where animals acquire nectar from the flower while facilitating pollination. So it is a service resource type of mutualism. So insects, they are getting resource from the plants, and plants are getting pollinated. That is a kind of service provided by the insects, and they help in dispersal of the seeds to new areas. So plants are entering into new areas. So some animals help in dispersal of the seed to suitable habitats in exchange of nutrients from the fruits. Okay. Now let us take this example where there is a wasp and fig. So this is an association between fig and a wasp. Okay. So what is happening here is the fig is getting pollinated and wasp is getting food from the fig plant. Okay. So what is happening here? So we'll start the cycle from the female wasp. Okay. Female wasp which has lot of pollen attached to its body. So you can see these yellow dots. It has pollen grains attached to its body. Okay. So female wasp, a pollen laden female wasp. This is the first stage. We'll come back to the cycle, entire cycle. We'll start with here and we will end it here only. Okay, this is the starting point. So female laden with pollen, they will enter the synconium of an unripe fig. Synconium is multiple type of fruit. So it has multiple, ये एक फ्लावर से नहीं बना है फ्रूट, एक इन्फ्लोरेसेंस से बना है. So if an entire inflorescence, it is a type, it is converted into fruit, it is called as multiple fruit. Okay, synconium. Your pineapple is also an example of multiple fruit. Your strawberry is an example of multiple fruit. Right? So synconium बोलते हैं हम लोग. Fig के केस में we call it synconium. Berry is a type of fruit. Okay, caryopsis is a type of fruit. Capsule is a type of fruit. So synconium is a specific term. So synconium is a multiple fruit. Unripe fruit जो है, so at the base you have a small hole which is called as ostiole. So this female wasp, it will find a unripe fig fruit and it will enter through this small hole. Okay, through this ostiole, the female wasp will enter into the fruit. Right. So fig synconium contains both male and female flowers. So fig contains, ये multiple है ना, तो इसमें male and female flowers दोनों होते हैं. So second stage में the wasp lays eggs with some of the flowers in the synconium. Not all, some of the flowers it will lay the eggs. In the process, the insect pollinates other female flowers. So while it is moving, while laying eggs and it is moving, its body is covered with pollen grain, right? So when it is moving inside the fruit, so it is pollinating. So this is a part of stem. ये actually ovary नहीं है, ये stem, fleshy stem है, synconium, right? So flowers are getting pollinated during this process when the wasp is laying the eggs and moving around, right? So it lays eggs with few of the flowers, not all of them, while pollinating the other flowers. Now, flower ovaries that contain wasp larvae form enclosing gall-like structure. So flower ovaries where it has laid eggs, it forms a gall-like structure. The pollinated flowers without the larvae produces a seed. So not all the ovaries, it will lay eggs only in some of the flowers, not all of them. Other flowers are getting pollinated, so they will produce seed. The flowers in which it has laid eggs, they contain the larvae, right? So as the fig matures, so unripe fig में क्या है, fig धीरे धीरे mature होता है, so male wasps emerge from the galls. So these galls, males will emerge from the galls. They travel the synconium in search of female wasp and fertilizing the females, while females are still in their galls. Males अपने गाल से बाहर आते हैं, फीमेल भी होंगे ना गाल्स में. When it lays eggs, it has both males and females. So males, they come out and they will search for the females. Females are still in their galls, they are not emerged. फीमेल अभी भी गाल के अंदर है, फीमेल को ढूंढ के उसको फर्टिलाइज करते हैं. They will search for the females and they will fertilize them. So male flowers have matured by the time mated female wasps emerge from their galls. So by the time these females who were fertilized when they were inside the galls, they were fertilized by the males. So males, after fertilizing, they will die. Females, they emerge, and by the time females come out, the male flowers, they produce pollen. So female, when it comes out of the galls and it moves, it will attach pollen grain because male flowers have matured. So pollen grains will attach to the body, female will come out. So without ever leaving the synconium, the males will die after fertilization. So females, after collecting the pollen from the mature male flowers within the ripe fig, each mated female wasp escapes through a tunnel. तो यहाँ से एक टनल बना के, यहाँ पे देखो एक टनल बनाया है, and the female is flying out. So female wasp carry the pollen and they search for another fig. So this entire cycle continues. So fig is getting pollinated, wasp is getting food, right? Wasp, it is getting shelter. You understood this example? So this is dispersive mutualism. Last example is honey guide and humans. Now honey guide is a bird. Okay, this is a bird which can identify the honeycombs. कहाँ पर मधुमक्खी का छत्ता है, beehives. It can identify the location of beehives, and what it does is it likes the wax, it eats on the wax of the honeycomb, but it is afraid of those honeybees, right? They will attack this bird. So this honey guide, what it does is it will guide the humans, because humans can subdue the honeybees, right? With smoke, honeybees will go away, they will collect the honey, and the wax which is left after, it can be eaten by this honey guide. So honey guide and humans both are getting benefited. So honey guides will guide the human to the beehive, humans will subdue the honeybees and they will collect the honey, and whatever is leftover wax, it will be eaten by the honey. So they work and get benefited mutually. So this is the example. So let us stop it here. We have covered up to mutualism. The rest of them are very few examples. Mutualism के बहुत examples, and you get confused if you have not covered as many as possible. There is a higher chance that you might get an option, one of the option you might not have read, and you'll get confused and commit a mistake. So I have tried as many examples as possible. So you also, so I asked you to write down just names of all the examples. You don't need to actually revise it all every time you read it, but once you read it thoroughly, you will remember it. Just names, you remember which one is obligate, which one is facultative. So we will cover amensalism and rest of the associations in the next class. So Monday we will finish this and we will do ecosystem ecology, food web, food chains, all those things. Okay, Monday we will cover, and after that we will go within 2 classes. We will try to cover most important cycles. Carbon and nitrogen cycles are most important. Rest of the cycles are not that important because they are not affecting the climate directly. So they do not contribute to the climate change and all those things. So carbon and nitrogen cycle are important. We'll cover them in detail, and biomes. So within next 2 to 3 classes, ecology will be over and we will move on to biodiversity. Okay, so that will be all. Thank you very much.